Our next speaker is Her Excellency Elham Ibrahim, who is the Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy at the African Union. She has several decades of extensive experience as an academic and policymaker. She has a PhD in electronics and communication from Cairo University. And as I said, she has worked extensively both in Cairo and in the Middle East as an academic and policymaker before coming to the African Union. Madam Commissioner, if we could please invite you to the podium.
General Ham, Commander, U.S. Africa Command, representative of ECOWAS and representative of ECCAS, our Master of Ceremony, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed both a privilege and pleasure for me to share with you today a perspective of what we are doing at the African Union Commission to address our maritime challenges on ocean of maritime safety and security seminar, your seminar today, or our seminar today, and for another 2 days on towards strategic synergy in the maritime domain of West and Central Africa. Permit me to congratulate the U.S. Africa Command for funding and hosting this event. I wish also to congratulate the U.S. Department of State, Department of Defense, and the Department of Justice, as well as the U.S. Coast Guard, Naval Forces Africa, and the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. Also permit me to sincerely thank General Ham, Commander, U.S. Africa Command, for his invitation and for the kind attention showed to me since my arrival to this really beautiful city of Garmisch. Actually, this invitation was addressed to the chairperson, Dr. Bing, but due to other pressing issues, he couldn't make it. And I take it for granted that you all accept his apologies. My remarks today has twofold. First, exploring the opportunities and challenges of Africa's maritime domain. Secondly, connecting our discussions to the ongoing development of a continental-wide maritime strategy underway at the African Union Commission. For us, looking at the map, we can see Africa as a big island and needs to have a better situational awareness of all activities in its adjoining oceans and seas. Over the past 4 decades, total seaborne trade has more than quadrupled. 90% of the world trade and 2/3 of its energy supplies are conducted by the sea. As the backbone of international commerce, oceans and seas are vital to African expectations in quality of life. in peace, in security, in stability, in economic development, transportation, energy, communication, trade, environmental and scientific research, historical and cultural heritage, and so on. The African maritime domain is under attack, infected by many threats and vulnerabilities. Over the past 5 decades, the minimum loss from illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing and overfishing in Africa may in aggregate exceed $100 billion US. Just 4 years ago, the UNODC said that Africa was a continent that was really effectively insulated from the global drug traffic. But Africa has now succumbed to drug trafficking. According to a special report from the United States Institute of Peace, the loss to the economy from illegal oil bunkering or theft in the Gulf of Guinea between 2003 and 2008 totals approximately $100 billion US. In 2004, there were only 2 pirate attacks reported off the coast of Somalia. In 2007, 31 attacks occurred off Somalia, up from 10 in 2006. In 2008, the IBM registered 111 attacks. In 2009, 217 attacks were registered. And in 2010, culminated at 233 attacks, with 49 vessels hijacked and 1,016 hostages. I think huge numbers. During the first 6 months of this year, 2011, 125 actual and attempted attacks have been registered in the Gulf of Aden alone, against 51 during the same period last year. As I speak now, 22 ocean-going vessels are hijacked and 518 people of various nationalities are still held hostages by Somali pirates. While world attention is focused on this phenomenon of the coast of Somalia, there is a growing concern on the western coast of Africa. It should be noted that the root cause of piracy off the coast of Somalia is illegal fishing and dumping of toxic waste in Somalian water by foreign vessels, practices which have severely constrained the ability of local fishermen to earn a living and forced many to turn to pirating instead. Distinguished delegates, until there is a true understanding of the geostrategic importance of Africa's maritime domain for Africa's socio-economic development growth, how central it is for the well-being and prosperity of the millions of Africans. The scope and magnitude of all the aforementioned threats and vulnerabilities will continue to grow. I think with this full understanding comes the responsibility for action. With over 1 billion people, Africa's population could grow to 2 billion by 2050. And the forthcoming, if nothing is done today for a better governance of Africa's maritime domain, the price will be far much higher in the future. Expansion of the global system has heightened increased competition for maritime and other resources. I know my speech is a little bit long, but please permit me to say. Please follow me in this particularly virtual exercise. And let us jump into year 2050. Notice with me that the global geostrategic concern have grown over many issues to include food security, climate change and sea level rise, oceanic wealth competition, protectionism and internationalism, legal and jurisdictional issues, new colonialism, recurrent systematic breakdown involving irregulars and non-state actors, and so on. We all have to take action, and now, to secure a better quality of life for future generations, not only in Africa, but worldwide. African Maritime's domain offers a broad spectrum of opportunities for wealth creation. It's a vast dispository of resources. When fully tapped, it will provide African societies with additional resources to strengthen development, including food, energy, and human security. African nations have yet to muster enough political will to fight against sea blindness at all levels. There is a need to cultivate interagency, intersectoral, interdepartment cooperative collaboration at all levels when dealing with our maritime challenges and opportunities. We involve the regional economic communities, regional mechanisms, the private sector, and African specialized institutions and NEPAD at early stage of the development of the 2050 Africa's integrated maritime strategy, internationally, intentionally called 2050 AIM strategy, AIM strategy. The challenge at the regional levels also lies in the deconfliction, the harmonization, synchronization, and coordination of the various initiatives related to maritime security and safety. In response to some of the above-mentioned challenges, the African Union is pushing for the establishment of a continental representation of chiefs of the African navies and coast guards to scrutinize and address issues of situational awareness in the whole African maritime domain and to uphold cooperative efforts between navies, coast guards of the African Union member states. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there cannot be sustainable socio-economic development without peace and security. And without development and empowerment, no sustainable peace will occur. Security in this regard covers a wide area to include security of personnel and property, security in streets, security of state, land, and maritime security for coastal states, and security of maritime domain. Therefore, building on the security socio-economic development nexus, the Commission intends to access the broad spectrum of the current maritime activities and take full advantage of the potential for wealth creation from the sustainable governance of all Africa's oceans and seas. The African Union encourages regional economic communities that have not yet done so to develop comprehensive maritime strategies with clear ends, ways, and means linked together to enhance wealth creation for African people. The African Union encourages regional economic communities to develop frameworks, inter-regional cooperation in maritime-related cross-cutting issues. As you would recall, from 6 to 7 April 2010, the Commission organized at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa a workshop of cross-sector experts on maritime security and safety from all African Union member states. This was a follow-up to the relevant paragraph of the decision adopted by the 13th ordinary session of the Assembly of the Union, held in Sirte, Libya, from 1 to 3 July 2009. In that workshop, in my opening speech, I recalled that for years, African states have been mostly concerned by the declining capacity of their maritime industry. However, recently, the growing menace of unlawful activities on African waters and the rapid escalation of piracy activities off the coast of Somalia and the Gulf of Guinea has meant that more attention be given to matters of maritime security. It served as a wake-up call to the leadership in Africa to take concrete action to rid the continent of these scourges. In this respect, I highlighted the need to adopt and implement practical measures that would make it possible to address each and every issue related to the current maritime security situation in Africa. The participants to this workshop also laid emphasis on the elements to include, first, the need for early signature and ratification of the Africa Maritime Transport Charter and the implementation of the Durban Resolution and the Plan of Action on Maritime Transport, as well as other relevant AU instruments and decisions on maritime security and safety. And we may recall that this Africa Maritime Transport Charter was first adopted in 1994 and updated in Durban in October 2009. It was adopted during the Kampala summit in July last 2010. The charter shall enter into force 30 days after the deposit of the 15th instrument of ratification with the chairperson of the African Union Commission. The second issue raised by the participants in this workshop was the establishment of a cross-sector task force to address maritime security, maritime safety, maritime pollution, and enhancement of wealth creation from Africa's seas and oceans. This is effective since the 3rd of June this year, 2011, when the African Union Commission Deputy Chairperson, Mr. Mwensha, officially launched the 2050 AIM Strategy Task Force at the AUC. This 2050 AIM Strategy Task Force is to develop an overarching, multi-decade, multi-layered, integrated, coherent, and comprehensive strategy, a long-term common vision that would aim at addressing seaborne challenges and opportunities to Africa's maritime domain. The 2050 AIM Strategy Task Force, which is to incorporate experts nominated by the regional economic communities, regional mechanisms, and relevant specialized organs, such as the Sea Power Africa Symposium, is composed of representatives from the following departments in the African Union Commission: Peace and Security, Economic Affairs, Human Resource and Science and Technology, Infrastructure and Energy, Political Affairs, Rural Economy and Agriculture, Social Affairs, Gender, Trade and Industry, Information and Communication, Administration and Human Resources Management, Office of the Legal Counsel, and Strategic Planning. You can see it is a holistic task force, includes all departments approximately. When deemed necessary and appropriate, the 2050 AIM Strategy Task Force may call upon any expert of his or her experience. And here we have with us Mr. Samuel Kame. He was elected as a convener of this 2050 task force, and he may, I think you are all may know him. He's with us today. And I wish him all success in this very hard task. Many partners have expressed their readiness to assist in this process of developing the 2050 strategy. We welcome this and value it very much, but you will all agree with me that this has to be an African-driven process that will incorporate all interested partners at the right time. What we critically need, as you may imagine, is the necessary funding to bring together the African foremost stakeholders to mature the 2050 strategy for maritime in Africa. African foremost stakeholders must be part of the process and take the ownership of this process. This is how we can secure the buy-in for our proposed strategy. To further advance on the ownership and buy-in, we have developed a web page on Facebook, which is currently under proofreading and validation by the 2050 Strategy Task Force. As soon as the English version is validated, we will build the same page in the 4 African Union languages. And we have each of them on Twitter also and LinkedIn. Expectations are high that the African citizens will take advantage of the community networks and have their say in the whole process. To further mature elements of the 2050 strategy, we anticipate holding 4 workshops to review and socialize the strategy in the course of 2012. The African Union staff is busy working on that with the full support of the leadership. Then we'll start the most important part, the implementation. The implementation of full-fledged 2050 strategy. Since, as we all know, a strategy is not the end itself. It is just a venue to the end. In order to further emphasize our individual and collective responsibility to protect the maritime environment and carefully manage its resources, we have deemed appropriate to strategize and launch a pan-African No More Sea Blindness campaign that will enhance the indispensable political will at various decision-making levels. The real end state of this endeavor is an increased dignity and quality of life of African citizens. The political will in this endeavor is critical, and the African Union Commission will work to raise the level of political commitment within the regional economic communities and member states. Expectations are very high that these increased benefits will positively contribute to the environmental and socio-economic development, as well as increased national, regional, and continental stability, and by the same token, make a substantive contribution to global security. We anticipate full support of the US government in these endeavors, and we are counting on you all to build the maritime security all over the world. And at the end, I ask God to bless all of you and to bless Africa, and thank you for your kind attention.